Okay, so now you have your beautifully softened hide, and the trick now is going to be to keep it that way. And if buckskin has one enemy, it's water. First, it's going to absorb water like a sponge, so that's something to keep in mind if you're planning on making clothes and wearing it, because it's going to remain wet and it feels like clammy skin just clinging to you, which is not necessarily very comfortable. But more importantly at this stage is that if you take your just softened hide and you put it in water and you let it dry, it's going to become stiff again. And in order to make it soft, you're going to have to repeat the whole softening process, which, as you've just seen, is quite a bit of work. And so the way to prevent that is to smoke the hide. I'm not going to go into the chemistry of it, but pretty much the smoke will go into the hide and can occupy the sites where the water molecules would be. And so it prevents your hide from drying stiff. And there are many different ways to smoke a hide, from very simple, like laying it on a tripod maybe, or a frame of some kind over a smoldering fire. And if you want to do that, it's fine. It's going to take a long time because most of the smoke will just be dispersed in the air. And so you're going to have to check on it often, add a lot more wood often, and it may take, from several hours to several days even. But if you want to do that, you don't have to do this step that I'm going to show you now. What I do when I smoke my hide is that I want to take as little time as possible and be as efficient as possible. And in order to do that during the smoking process, it's going to take a little bit of more time to get the hides ready. And the first step is going to be to fix all the holes in your hide. So hopefully, you took good care of your hide, you got some good quality hide in the beginning, and you don't have any holes, and you can just skip this step. If you do happen to have holes in your hide, whether because you got them with holes or because it tore up during the process of softening it or scraping it, then you have to fix the holes, because you want to have the smoke contained as much as possible within the bag of hides that we're going to make. And any hole is going to disperse the smoke out, and so it's going to be less efficient. And so I'm going to show you, we're going to zoom in here, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about how to fix a hole. So here we have a hole, and when I first started, I really wanted to do everything primitively and right, and so I would fix all my hole at this stage with sinew, and I would fix every single hole with it, and it would take hours and hours and hours. And then I smoke my hides, and in the end I would make clothes or whatever, and I would not use the part of the hide that I had fixed. And so I just figured that it was a huge waste of time. And so what I do now is that I fix holes very quickly and then smoke it. And then I draw the patterns on my hides, do whatever I want to do. And then if there happens to be a hole within that pattern, then I fix it nicely with sinew. But right now at this point, I'm going to do a very quick job. But I'll talk a little bit about holes in general. And so when you have a hole in your hide, you want it to be as flat as possible. And so, you can just pull the hide around the hole in different ways. And here you can see, hopefully, that, the hole is very narrow. If I pull it the other way, it makes a much bigger hole. And so it kind of gives you a direction of how the hole wants to fix itself. And so in this case, we'll just fix it this way instead of fixing it this way. And you want to fix holes from the flesh side of your hide, just because it will show less. And so what you want to do is to fold your hide around the hole. And then you can see, hopefully again, that it forms a little kind of smiley face here, or a little boat-shaped thing. And when you fix your hides for real nicely, when you want to do something, you want to have as flat an edge as possible, so you don't really want to have this smiley face. And in order to get rid of those corners that are raised up a little bit, you need to take scissors and just cut the corners so that it's flat. So it makes a slightly bigger hole, but in the end, it's going to make a very nicely fixed hole that will be almost invisible to the eye, instead of having this really weird, corners on it. But like I say, right now I'm just interested in containing as much smoke as possible inside my hide when I'm smoking it, so this is just going to be a quick job. And for this job, I just use a regular round needle. In a further step, we're going to use a Glover's needle, which makes it easier to penetrate the hide. That's a leather working needle that has sharp edges. The thing with the sharp edges is that, of course, it's going to cut the hide, and so you don't really want to add more cuts around your hole already. And so when you fix your hole, it's better to use a round needle. And I just use some regular thread, some regular cotton thread. And to fix it is pretty easy. You just start at one corner, and you can make a hole if you want. In general, I just leave a little tail, and I just keep it under my thumb here. And then I'm going to do a couple of stitches just coming from the same side. So I go from my side to your side, and then I just snugly fit the little tail underneath. I'm going to do that again, and that's to prevent one little tail to come out without needing to make a knot or anything like that. But also it kind of makes the first couple of stitches a lot stronger. And you can keep on doing that. It's called the whip stitch, where you just always come in from the same side of the hide. But it takes a little more thread, which is not a big deal, but also takes a little bit more time. And so I'm just gonna do a basic running stitch here, where I just go in one side, and you just wanna grab just the edge of the hole. I don't know even what it is, like a 32nd of an inch or something. So just below the edge of the hole, and push through on both sides. And if the hide is a little tough to go through, if it's a little thick, you can use the rest of your hide to push the needle through, just to protect your fingers. And so I just keep on doing that. You'll see that it goes pretty fast. But I just help myself with the hide. And so, of course, it should show you that it's very important to soften the edges of your holes as well while you're softening the hide, because if you just give up on your holes during the softening process, then the edges of your holes are going to be really stiff, which is going to make it really hard for your needle to go through. And so pay attention to those edges while you're softening. And if they're a little too stiff, then that's fine. You can just use scissors and cut around it, which again makes a slightly bigger hole, but it makes it easier to fix with the needle. And so when you get to the edge, again, you can make a little knot or something, but I tend to do the same thing. I just keep on doing a couple of whip stitches back onto itself just to strengthen it. Sometimes you can rip, and sometimes even go through the loop to do a little knot at the end. And that's it. It doesn't take any longer than that. Your hole is fixed, and you can just move on to the next one. And so, that's it for fixing holes. And the next step is going to be to make a little bag out of hides so that we can smoke hides more efficiently. Okay, so now all your holes in your hide should be fixed. If you have tiny little holes in your hide, it's not necessarily worth the time to fix all those. You could just plug them in during the process, which I'll probably show you during the smoking process. You can just plug them with some little stick on some moss or something. So, just plug the bigger hole for now. Anything that's larger than a 1/4 inch for sure. And so right now we want to smoke the hide, and like I said, there's very passive ways to do that, but it takes longer. And the way that I'm doing it is that I'm going to create bag out of this hide to be able to funnel smoke inside. If you only have one hide, you can fold it in half, where you would fold it lengthwise, where the neck is folded onto the neck and the butt is folded onto the butt there. And then you can just start from the tail end here, again with just some basic thread, doing some basic running stitch all the way down, leaving just a small opening at the end where you'll be able to funnel smoke. If you have several hides though, it's a lot more efficient to smoke 2 hides together. And it's fairly important to just match the hides both in size and in thickness, because depending on the thickness of your hide, it's going to absorb smoke at different rates. So thick hides will take longer to smoke, and thin hides will take less long to smoke. And of course, the shape of your bag is going to be important, and that's why you need to have hides that match up fairly well. Otherwise, you can have some very odd loose ends into your skins, which will make your smoking bag really awkward and make it harder for the hides to smoke well and evenly. And so in this case, I have 2 hides that are fairly matched up. Of course, you're never going to have a perfect match, but those are similar weights. They could go together in a garment, and so being smoked together, they also come out with a similar color. And so I matched them butt to butt, neck to neck over there, and also grain side to grain side. You always want to smoke the grain side first, and then the flesh side last. And so this is the grain side or the hair side of this hide. Same thing here, and I just put them together. And I match them the best that I can in terms of width and length and all that. And again, I'm just going to start from the tail end of it. And this time I'm going to use a Glover's needle, which is really sharp with 3 edges, and so it cuts through the leather a lot more easily, which will make this job a lot easier. Also choose a very heavy needle so that I can go through several stitches at once, which I'll show you. And people take various shortcuts at this point. Some people use staples, some people use glue, all kinds of things that you can do really. I just like the easiness of, and the simpleness also, of just using the needle and thread. It takes a little time, but in the end, well, that's what works for me at least. So I'll just show you here, starting from the tail end. What you want to is that you're going to want to start from the tail end and go down one side to the neck, and then you'll come back to the tail and go back the other side. And that's so that your bag that you're making here is more even. Otherwise, if you start from the tail and you go all the way around, then your bag may just be in a different shape, which will make it less easy for the smoke to penetrate the hides. And so I'll just show you a couple of stitches how to get started. Again, just with my Glover's needle, I'll just do a couple of whip stitches with the tail end. Snug. And again, you want to be, maybe a 1/16 of an inch or something away from the edge of the hide. You don't want to be too close because you don't want your big needle to, tear the sides, but you definitely don't want to be too far away because you just want to have as much hide exposed to the smoke. And of course, if you have the stitching way on the inside of the hide, then all the outside from there is not going to be exposed. And so after you've done a couple of whip stitches there, I'm going to start my running stitch. And again, using the hide to push the needle through is going to be a big help. And also, if you go through each stitch one by one, like I did fixing the hole, it's going to take forever. And it's really frustrating. And so what you can do though, is that you can just poke the needle through and then, you know, keeping the two hides together, the two edges together, you can just fold it over your needle and push it the other side like this, and then you do it again. So you just have the head of the needle poking through and you just fold the two hides together so it just barely comes out the other side, and you just keep on going like this until it becomes a little too hard to do so. Oops. Be careful not to poke yourself with those needles that are really sharp, and you don't want to have any blood on your hide. Okay, so when I get to the point where it starts to be a little harder, you know, I have 4 or 5 stitches together, and just push the needle through on one side and then pull it from this side and just pull the whole length through. And so, you know, remember that here we're trying to contain as much smoke in there as possible, and so you want your stitches to be fairly tight. You don't want them to be super tight that it's all scrunched up like this, because then again it will prevent the smoke from entering those folds. But you want it, you know, a little bit of wave. You know, if your hides just remain flat like that, you know, it leaves kind of the room for the holes to open a little bit. And so just pull your stitches slightly tight so that there's a slight wave to it. And so I'm just going to keep on doing that. Basic running stitch all the way, fairly tight but not too much. And I'll show you again when I'm done with that.